Hey, so if you've ever done any kind of qualitative research, you know the feeling. You've wrapped up your interviews, you've gathered all your documents, and bam, you are staring at a mountain of text. So how in the world do you turn all of that raw data into a story that actually makes sense? Well, today we're going to break down the art of qualitative coding. Yeah, does this look a little familiar? It can feel completely overwhelming, right? You've got pages and pages of rich, detailed information, but it's just all over the place. It honestly feels like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. Where do you even start looking for the real insights buried in there? Well, the answer is something called coding. And no, we're not talking about computer programming here. Think of it more like being a detective. Coding is really just a structured way of organizing and sorting through your data so you can spot different themes, ideas, and patterns. It's how you go from total chaos to real clarity. But it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Let's start with the first level. Okay, so we're going to explore 3 levels of analysis here, and this framework is based on the work of Dr. Philip Adu. The very first and most fundamental level is all about description. Just think of this as creating a really clear, accurate map of what your data landscape looks like. The goal here is super simple and direct. You are not trying to guess what something means or read between the lines. Not yet. You're simply reporting what is right there in the text. It's that essential first step to really, truly understanding your material. Let me put it this way. If a participant in your study says, "I felt sad when my project was canceled," your job here is just to summarize that statement. A descriptive code would be something simple, like expressing sadness about project cancellation. See? You're just capturing the essence of what was said, without adding your own spin to it. The process is really clean and direct. You pull out the relevant bits, you describe what they're saying, and then you create a label for it. It's all about making that initial summary. But once you have that summary, you can start to ask a much deeper question. What does it all mean? All right, so now we're going to go a level deeper. Description tells us what is in the data. Interpretation, on the other hand, starts to ask what it means. This is where you, as the researcher, really begin to connect the dots and dig into the underlying significance of it all. And you see that keyword right there, make sense. You're moving way beyond just simple observation now. You're starting to look at the context, the tone, what the data implies. This is the big shift from being just a reporter to becoming a true analyst. Now, what's really interesting here is this subtle but super powerful shift in the language. We're not just describing the relevant parts anymore, we are making sense of them. So if we go back to our earlier example, that participant who expressed sadness might now get a code like coping with professional loss, or maybe emotional impact of failure. You see the difference? It's a whole other level. The steps might look almost identical, but that second one makes sense. That is a huge leap. This is where you really put on your analyst hat. You're not just summarizing anymore. You're asking why and what does this suggest? So the codes you're creating now, they aren't just simple labels anymore. They're actually the first real seeds of insight. And that brings us to the final, highest level of analysis, making a claim, or what we call presumption. This is where you move from just interpreting the data to actually using it as evidence to support a bigger argument or conclusion. This is where your story truly starts to take shape. At this stage, you're not just exploring anymore. You're actually asserting something. You're building a case. The data you've so carefully described and interpreted now becomes the rock-solid foundation for the conclusions you're going to draw in your research. This is where it all comes together. Remember that participant's sadness we described and the professional loss we interpreted? Well, now it becomes a piece of evidence for a much larger claim, like lack of institutional support leads to employee demoralization. You're not just coding the data anymore. You're using it to build a powerful argument. So the key thing to get here is that every single code you create is now like a mini argument. You can see it in the process. You're not just noting what's there. You are explicitly tying your claims directly to the evidence, using each piece of data like a building block for your final narrative. Okay, so let's pull it all together. We've got our 3 distinct levels: describing, interpreting, and making a claim. The question now is, which one is right for you? Well, it all comes down to the kind of story you're trying to tell. This table really lays out the journey perfectly. You can see exactly how the goal evolves, from simply summarizing what's there to truly understanding what it means, and then finally to drawing a firm conclusion from it. Each stage builds on the one before, taking you all the way from raw data to a powerful argument.
A really great way to think about all this is that you have three different analytical lenses you can look through. You can use the descriptive lens just to see the surface, the interpretive lens to see the meaning hidden underneath, or the presumptive lens to really build a case.
And this is why this whole thing matters so much. See, the coding strategy you pick isn't just some technical detail, it's a storytelling choice. It literally defines the scope and the depth of your findings. A descriptive analysis is going to tell a very, very different story from one that's built on claims and conclusions. So the next time you're staring down that wall of text, don't just ask yourself, how do I code this? Instead, ask a better question. What kind of story do I really want to tell? Because choosing your lens, well, that's the first and maybe the most important step in finding it.